Alright, let's talk about the quadratic function, also known as a parabola. Alright, this is one of the four main functions you learn in grade 10, 11, and 12. This is the grade 10 level of this function. So the difficulty that I'm going to be going through here with this explanation is of the grade 10 level. Now, at the grade 10 level, this is universal. So the mother graph refers to a function that exists in the most basic form without any changes, alterations, translations, or anything of that nature. So this is the most basic form. The graph is given by the equation y is equal to x squared in its most basic form, uh, and looks something like this. So it's like an open cup sort of thing. It has a turning point at 0. The y-intercept is 0 because it touches the y-axis at 0. The x-intercept is also at 0 because it touches the x-axis at 0. This graph goes downwards and then turns and goes up, so it has something we call a turning point. So anytime a graph does any sort of turn or anything of that nature like that, we have things that are called turning points, and that's the point at which the graph turns. So there's a turning point here right at the origin. The domain of this parabola currently is x is an element of real numbers, because well, it's always going to be x is an element of real numbers at this point, because it continues in the negative and positive direction infinitely. However, with the range, the graph comes to a certain y value, stops, and goes back up. So the range of this graph is, the lowest point is 0, and it exists everywhere above 0. There's nothing below 0. So the range is y is greater than equal to 0. Alright, the standard form for the function that will be used at the grade 10 level is y is equal to ax squared plus q. Now, q and a are important considerations. Here's what we have over here. The value of a will affect the shape of the graph. So a, if it's greater than 0, meaning if the a value is positive, so anything above 0, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even a half, 3/4, 5/8, whatever the case is, if it's positive, this a value is positive, your graph will always be in the shape of a smiley face. So this is a smiley face. However, if the a value is negative, meaning this here is -1, -3/4, -10, your graph will be in a sad face shape. So it's important to check this, or to look at the shape if it's given to you, and make sure you see that connection. The value q is something we call a vertical shift. It shifts the graph up, or it shifts the graph down. And for grade 10, it's also going to be the y-intercept, but basically it shifts the graph up or down. We then have a turning point, which was discussed earlier. The turning point can always in grade 10 be found using this idea. It's given by the coordinates 0 and q, where q is whatever the value of q in the equation is. We then have something called an axis of symmetry, where x is equal to 0. Symmetry means if I had to cut this graph in half such that both halves will fit onto each other. Now this is easier to understand maybe with a rectangle. If you cut a rectangle this way, this half can fold onto that half. Or if you took your rectangle and you cut it this way, this half can fold onto that half. Now with a function, how would you cut this function so that the two halves fold onto each other? You would cut it directly down the middle, just like that. This half can fold onto this half. So the axis of symmetry is a vertical line that cuts through the center of the graph. we've discussed vertical lines in a previous video, and the equation of a vertical line is given by the x coordinate it passes through. So in this case, it's through 0. It's passing through the y-axis over x is equal to 0. So for grade 10 level, the axis of symmetry for a parabola is x is equal to 0, because the graph's turning point, or the x coordinate of the turning point, is on 0.